Shop for today's date, Ms. Lloyd, Mr. Lanes. You all would like? Go right ahead, take it away.
We want to talk with you about the community crossing grant. It's through NDOT, and it's a 50/50 match grant. It can be used for construction, paving projects, things like that. We have a couple of projects we've looked at. There are just some stipulations that come along with this $1 million, and that is one being that it needs to come out of the Lloyd Fund, the match does, or either the rainy day fund. So that leaves redevelopment with our hands tied as far as being able to pay the match out of our funds. I think there was some money that was allocated for Holman's Lane that you all discussed, I guess. And I think a lot of people, that's where that money was going to come from for that match for those communities. So
So are you talking about the one-time money that we're getting through the income tax adjustment?
Well, it's three-time money, because there's supposed to be money in the next 2 years.
2019.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. So the Holman's Lane project, that would in turn leave it short $1 million if we matched $1 million to this. So we would propose that redevelopment put additional $1 million towards Holman's Lane project in return for you all basically doing the match for this grant, would be our proposal.
When I was discussing this with you, we grabbed the mayor, because as soon as we said Holman's Lane, and he said he
Right.
was fine with it. Has anything changed? Have you talked again with the mayor?
I talked to him this morning and told him the same thing, so. And we've got a couple of projects, Jorge might be able to tell you better what we might be able to use it towards. So Holman's Lane actually is not one of the projects we can use it for because of the acquisition phase. It would take too long and the money would run out. The grant would be over before we would ever actually be able to use it for construction on that portion, so.
Well, this, as you guys know, this community crossings grant came about, rather suddenly. And we attended a meeting in Seymour where NDOT was presenting it, and the money is very attractive because there's not a lot of requirements. I mean, normally when we're doing all these road projects, you got to follow the federal aid and the NDOT procedure, and NDOT's got to bid it in Indianapolis, and there's just a lot of red tape. In this case, we control it, the city controls it, we do the project. They only will fund construction, so any project that we take bids, the same way as we always take bids, and we got a reliable contractor that we can say, okay, that's a good contractor. We make a copy of that bid, we send it to NDOT. They probably have a couple of questions, but then they send us a check. They don't hold the money, and we don't have to submit the money to them, so they send us a check for 50%. At the end, there's an audit. And, if they have some questions, actually, if there's an overrun, it's on us. If there's an underrun, we got to give them back their 50%. So they got it all figured out, as you can imagine.
So let's make sure there's not an underrun.
Yes.
Right. But, so we've been trying to identify projects because this has come about rather quickly. I mean, I attended this meeting, it was at the end of May. And one of the requisites, which is what we're trying to overcome, is that we don't have an approved, it's called an asset management plan. And that asset management plan would be, in my opinion, most counties, not cities, but most counties are going to submit paving projects, their annual paving. And the smaller counties that have smaller programs, it's easy. But the counties have a list of all their street, or their roads in their case, and they've gone through and they've rated every street. So every year, what was a 5 this year, and the rating is called a PACER rating system, and it goes from a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is a brand new street that we've built. 1 is one that's all torn up with, potholes and alligator cracking and all that stuff. So for us to be able to tap into this money, it's going to require a really big effort, and it's going to have to be city-driven from the engineer's office, I would imagine. We may be able to support him, but we can't do it, as an outside consultant, but it requires the completion of this asset management plan. We did find, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't want to bore you with the details, but I want you guys, people, to understand exactly where we're at. We did find a spreadsheet that has been, this thing was dated 2010, that would have to be updated, and it's got, for example, 13th Street from Acres Avenue to Spring Street. It's got a length, the year it was built, the width, so that somebody can estimate, because you not only rate it, but you propose some kind of you assign a value or a cost of what it's going to take to pave that street. We did one for New Albany some years ago. So that would have to be completed. It's going to be a tremendous effort, because if we don't have one approved like this by the state, they're not going to give us any money. And, we're starting late on it, but it's got to be done to be able to submit an application for funds.
And the application deadline is July 15th, is that
No,
correct?
it's the 29th now.
They've moved it back to July the 29th, but this is Callie, this is a big effort.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's going to have to write every street, that we're going to have to train them. Okay, if it looks like this, maybe go out and couple, that's a 2, that's an 8,
But it's my understanding that Andy's on board with this, because I talked with him before he went out of the country, because he knew, I'm not going to be able to be at this workshop.
He's on board, it's
dedicated
just,
And, okay,
he's on board, but it's going to require a big effort to be able to get this asset management plan.
So what entity is performing the asset management plan? Who's creating this?
Well, this would be either the street department or the engineer's office.
Of the city.
The city, yes.
And it's an update, correct?
Well, hopefully this is a good start, because if we got to start from scratch, it ain't going to happen.
and you said that was from 2010?
Yes,
Yes.
but it's got no rating, it's just got, there was a guy, I don't know, maybe some of the people have been here a while, there was a person called Tim Wells that used to come around and do, they did asset management everywhere, and I think he did it from GIS, I'm not really sure. So we were able to find this, so it's a good start. We've been talking about it for a while, and we just thought that, the state's going to be inundated by people asking for money. Why not Jeffersonville? I mean, it'd be,
Jorge, a question. I was under the impression that JTL was doing something like this for redevelopment. Is it something different? I thought, or maybe it wasn't JTL, but I was thinking somebody was going and looking at our roads and saying, this one needs fixed or repaired, and this one doesn't.
no, we have been doing that.
Okay.
But we've been working, Jim Silliman,
Okay.
my office has been working with the
Is
street
that
department.
kind of the same thing or not at all?
It's not.
Okay.
It's very simplistic, because we're given, and somehow, I don't know how this list comes up, it may be semi-political. They give us a list of the streets, and then we go out and look at the street and say, okay, you need to fix this, you need to do that, you need to full depth fix the potholes, you need to mill, and then you need to put an inch of asphalt, and then we estimate what that cost is going to be. That's not a rating system, that's an individual cost estimate for projects that mayor or you guys or somebody has picked, and they tell us, okay, we're going to do Dutch Lane from here to here. So this thing is looking at every street, putting it together in an Excel spreadsheet, and then there's a few more items that go with it, but this is the basic effort. This needs to be done. So,
So it is feasible before July 29th? So, like it-
Possibly, we don't.
it's possible for July the 29th. And Andy's out of the country, but we've met with him, and as soon as he gets back, we're going to meet again and try to figure out who's doing what.
I think it needs to happen regardless, because
Right.
next year, when the money comes back
Yeah.
up again, if they don't do this
Right.
plan, which we need it regardless, because that's how they should be figuring out which roads to pave, not just because somebody said pave it, you
Well,
know?
that was going to be my question. So will this, is this going to be able to actually have a function beyond just getting
Oh, yes,
a
it's
match?
something
This is
you ought to
what
have.
we should be using then, is what you're telling me to
Right.
determine what this.
And that's why I guess they're requiring that, because because the counties or cities who don't have it, it's going to force them to take that step to get it.
It's going to be spent
done.
on. No, what?
And then, so then the potential projects for this grant money will originate from that document, depending on,
Well, and that's the trick, is that we're going to have to make, the streets that have been selected, they're going to have to be downrated in this spreadsheet so that they they look like they're the ones that need to be done this year. I don't know, honestly, I don't know how these streets that we're going to pave are selected. I'm trying to be really political.
You don't know?
Ed understands, he's over there going,
Yeah.
I think I know how to select it.
okay, so,
John Doe
Okay.
Park.
you know, it's.
I'll stop asking questions.
No, it's a very legitimate question. It's tricky because, you know, I mean, we're not going to change the streets that are going to be done, and we need to look in the future also of, you know, I mean, do you pave a street because somebody says, hey, I need my street paved, and it's got 5 cars a day? Obviously not. You know, you got to,
Just, Jorge, is it just for paving or, you know, like all this sewer work it seems like we have going on, can any of
that's got, yeah, this is just for paving. On sewer, we have a list.
Said sidewalks too, right?
Sidewalks can be done
It does
also.
say that there's some,
There's some stipulations that go along with that,
it's
but
like
yeah.
questionable.
Yeah.
And this may be nuanced a little bit, but could it also apply to, I know I've gotten calls this week, and I was just commenting how I don't ever get calls. And I got calls this week
Because you said-
about trimming, tree overhang and things like that, or is that,
No.
does this need a shovel? Like
It's
this project need a
construction, it
shovel?
says,
Okay.
so.
Well, but I mean, on it, if we've selected a project and there's a tree that needs to be trimmed, then that's an element. But
Okay.
the tree being trimmed isn't going to trigger the project. It's just, it's a secondary.
And maybe you said this, Jorge or Delenn, but I missed it. We do this spreadsheet.
Asset management.
Asset management plan. Then we apply for the $1 million, is that what it is? The city matches it, so it's $2 million of funding.
It's a $2 million project, correct?
Does that start at the top of the list? We have no say in that? It just top of the list?
No,
you
we
go
can
down?
choose our project.
Anything on that list we can pick?
Well, it doesn't even have to be on that list necessarily. It can be a connectivity project or any, like North 10th Street up there where redevelopment just voted to start on that project. We could put it towards that if we wanted
It
to.
does have to be approved by
NDOT.
NDOT.
The
Yes.
grant's got to be.
The grant would have to
Why
be
we,
awarded.
why we need it to back up with the asset.
The asset management, yeah.
But they said if it shows connectivity and things like that for growth and whatnot, that would be looked
Well,
upon favorably, so.
Economic development's got a huge, you know, that's part of the rating criteria. And I mean, I know I could really dress up to North 10th Street with everything that's going on up there. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be like a no-brainer, so.
The state has a lot of interest because of River Ridge. They really want us to focus on that,
the middle of
so.
10th Street. I mean, when are we gonna, I mean, we can keep building out, and Dustin, your district, the sidewalks and roads are awful. I know I live kind of close.
What's the middle
I
of
mean,
10th
are we
Street? You
just
mean the
gonna keep
median?
putting all this money out, and no offense, Scott, in Scott's district, and just forget about the middle of Jeffersonville?
There's another project to take care of the middle of Jeffersonville, and that's being funded through separate funds.
Well, I mean,
Federal aid, there's a,
maybe I'm like Scott, I don't receive a lot of phone calls either, but, you know, I think.
there's a, the 10th Street project starts at Dutch Lane. You've been seeing all the utility relocation and the whiting they've been doing. It goes all the way out to, in front of the high school where they just put in.
So if we sign on to matching the grant, we have to decide where we're going to get the funds from. I'm just thinking internally. We have to decide where we're going to get the matching $1 million. And then, once it comes in, who determines the $2 million worth of project?
Yeah,
Is that
we have-
redevelopment?
Well, we would have to submit with that project what we were going to do before they award us.
Okay,
And we may not even get an
I
award.
got you.
Right,
Want the money, we submit a bunch of separate projects.
right. And when we submit that, we have to have our plan of what we're going to spend
You have to
it
have
on.
$2 million at minimum worth of plans.
Right, correct.
Which we
Well,
got that
yeah.
North 10th Street project.
Yeah.
6 million, 6.5
Yeah.
million.
So back to Nathan's question, where will those projects, is there any sort of approval for those? Like, will they come before the council at all, or like who will decide what we want to prioritize?
Didn't
Well,
they just
the-
say North 10th Street? That'd take more than 2 million, right?
That's
Yeah.
6.5 million.
Redevelopment already voted
But if
to
we can get
match
$1 million
the
out
rest
of,
of that part.
it's $1 million less we got to come up with. The local match has got to be Lloyd Rainy Day Fund
Okay.
or the new wheel
Gotcha.
surtax.
We don't have the wheel tax
They're
here,
gonna
so we
make a
couldn't
plan,
use
try
that
to
money,
Make sure that that gets the money.
Okay.
unfortunately. But,
Aha.
but we would definitely want your input. If there's another project you feel like that would be more important, we're open to listen to any project. We're just trying to find one that's short notice, because we don't have a lot of time to prepare the application. So it'd be easier if it was something we already had plan to do.
We thought maybe like the 8th Street storm sewer project, we could, instead of making it a storm sewer project, the street renovation project.
That was going to
And
be
the
my
storm
next
sewer's gotta
question,
be
if we
fixed.
could, because that project right there seems to me covers everything.
But there's no economic development involved. I mean, you got to look at the rating criteria and pick, your best bang for your dollar.
Not
The
to
projects
mention,
that are gonna be-
redevelopment's gonna have to be willing to give that $1 million for Holman's Lane to replace that funding. So if it's not going towards a redevelopment project, I don't know how willing they're gonna be to give back the money. Do you know what I mean? To replace that $1 million? Does that make sense? Since they've already allocated the funding for the North 10th Street, they've already agreed to pay for that. So basically, all that we would have to do is move that money to Holman's Lane project, $1 million of it, instead of North 10th Street. Does that make sense? So that way, Holman's Lane project's still completely funded, and we wouldn't have any shortfall there.
This is more of an information meeting. I don't know how much you guys have learned about this community crossings grant. I mean, it's all of a sudden there, and I mean, I know that we felt like, when you guys found out we didn't turn in an application, say, well, why are you our engineer? Why are you our grants person? I mean, we got to try. Everybody else is.
Is this going to be a recurring annual thing?
They say it's a 3-year program, is what NDOT told us. This year, they got $150 million, and 50% of that's got to go to the small counties with less than 50,000 in population. So, and then next year's next year is like 80 million, and then year 3 is like 75 million. But, I mean, you don't shoot at the basket, you don't score any points,
Can I ask a quick, does the sewer department not have an asset management on it?
They do, but this will not apply to sewers.
No, but I'm just wondering on the streets already, if they have.
It's not by streets. The asset management plan for wastewater is how many feet of 8-inch, and
Okay.
pump stations and the treatment plants, of course. We've got, that's where we came up with God, I can't remember the number for the R&R, the repair and replacement spreadsheet that we're using towards documenting with the EPA issue.
Delyn, if I'm thinking right, basically redevelopment's asking, there's $1 million grant on the table, so I certainly get that.
Right.
So you're asking for us to come up to try to find the other $1 million, the match, because redevelopment can't match it or won't
We
match?
can't.
Cannot
It
match
has to come out of Lloyd or the rainy day fund, yeah.
Okay, so you can't match it, so you're asking us to come up with another $1 million, and we just got 4.6
Right, correct.
given to us,
Correct,
but evidently this council has committed that to Holman's,
correct.
and we can't use this on Holman's, correct?
So
The grant, we can't, no.
Correct, so then you're asking us to come up with another $1 million outside of the 4.6.
Actually, we are
Matches
not
grant.
asking you to come up, redevelopment will come up with allocating $1 million towards the Holman's Lane
we're
project.
shifting $1
It's like
million.
We're just,
Shifting.
we're just
Shifting's
shifting
the right
the
word.
shell game, pretty
Shifting.
much. yeah.
And I'm just, for clarification, an additional $1 million? Okay, because my understanding, they were going to pay $4 million anyway.
Right,
Okay,
right.
okay.
So
I'm
it's
just trying to get it clear.
Callie used the right word, it's shifting, and the legalities are, that's somebody else's department, but I mean, how do you do it where you match with, and then you put the money
As
back
long
from
as there,
redevelopment?
I'm assuming that as long as there's $1
As long
million
as
that's not
redevelopment-
from redevelopment in that fund,
Right.
it can't be.
Yeah, that just means we're allocating another $1 million. They would have to vote on it and all
And I
that
mean,
stuff, yeah.
on the North 10th Street project, it'd be perfect, because that's a redevelopment project already, so if you put in $1 million of Lloyd, there's $1 million that TIF doesn't have to put in. Very confusing, but
If you have any questions,
gonna
you
try to
can
go
call
for it.
me and ask me about it.
When will they announce the recipients?
It was August 2nd, but I think they
End of
moved it
August.
up a little later than that now, the end of August now.
end of August.
But at least we won't have to wait on our money. We'll have it up front too, so that's a plus.
From,
And
I'm sorry.
go ahead, well, and next year, we will have our asset management plan completed, and then we can start following that for our paving, and then we can reapply again for, if we don't have a project, and use it towards that, I would think would be a good idea.
The time may get us this year, but we want to be prepared for next year if we can't make it.
Kelly, when is the next redevelopment meeting?
Next week, I believe, next Wednesday.
Wednesday.
From my perspective, I would be reassured if they would vote to
To go ahead and
To-
approve
to-
the extra million.
to get that some way in the minutes or where they commit that. So it does, so
Be
it's
specific.
truly not us.
Submit
'cause
that.
I've
If you want me
used-
to.
To
I
be
can put it on the
specific,
agenda.
commit that $1 million
Well-
to Holman's, right?
But be careful, and again,
I'm just saying, vote to fund $1 million one of our projects or something.
Contingent on
Contingent upon, yeah.
grant.
Ed, would you help me out, please?
Yeah,
He knows what I'm
because
trying
you're
to say.
creating a public trail, say that's really a redevelopment.
That's correct.
It's
Right.
really
Exactly right.
redevelopment, and you really can't do that.
Right.
Or you're going to expose the fact that we're using redevelopment money and we won't get the grant.
Bingo.
I have personally participated a couple times, I don't even know if Callie was in on this or not,
I know where you're going.
where the commitment was guaranteed and it did not come. Redevelopment chose to not honor the commitment, and because it wasn't in writing or it wasn't in the minutes, and that's the only reason I say that, because I've been burned a couple times.
There's got to be a way.
I
We got to pick the right way, or we
So,
can...
but if
regardless-
that's the
regardless,
case, then
it's-
there's $1 million missing
it-
for Holman's,
It's
right?
it's $1 million of free or money from outside our budget, so it's good for us, and hopefully they'll follow through, but if not,
I'll speak
still
with
going to
Les
be
and
a
see how-
benefit to
They're
Jefferson.
funding.
There's a way to alleviate your concern.
Okay.
We can do something
Okay.
where it seems like a commitment, we can do it where it's not related anyway. There's a way to do it.
There you go.
Okay.
That's
I'm all
that's
for
what
it.
it is.
I'm all for it.
Okay.
I think redevelopment has committed that they're gonna make up the difference of the Holman Lane project anyway, after our money is expended. So I don't think they're gonna leave Holman Lane not complete or not done. If we give this $1 million to the match somewhere else.
And then they're already putting forward 3.5, 4 million anyway, so I would assume that they would want to complete the project, but I understand.
And then we have until the end of July, so you all will have a couple of more meetings before that that we can put it up for a vote at a meeting.
Our challenge now is to go
To get that done.
attack and see...
Yeah, we may not even get
How
that
do we
done.
get it done? Can we get it done, and can we get it done by July the 29th and submit the application? That's our challenge right there.
Cool. Is
Okay?
there anything else?
I've changed the subject a little bit. Well, I have Jorge here. The Holman's Lane project, and I know at one time it was on a list of projects through NDOT for matching funds project, and I think it was moved back and it's still on the list. Do you have any information about that? Like when, what kind of grant would it be? Would it be a 20/80 grant like a lot of the other grants have been? And what's the time
It
frame?
would be an
if we follow
80/20
it?
grant, but the problem, and this is Andy's issue, but there's an $800,000 matching grant, or grant to be matched with $200,000 in FY18, which would begin, July 1st of 2018 to June 30th of 2019.
Can I speak on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I've met with Andy on that, because Andy and I have been talking about, with KIPTA, I keep up on all of that. Andy's already been in contact with KIPTA, or this 800,000, because it's not obligated. And we've already confirmed, which I even got an email from KIPTA, that 800,000
Is it
needs to go by vote in the next KIPTA meeting, but it's going to be moved to 10th Street.
Yeah, it's,
So we don't
the
lose
money's
that
just
800,000.
earmarked, it's not obligated, so it's not like we have a grant. And the problem with that project is if we use for any phase, and the phases on any project, of course, are engineering, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. This is only for right-of-way acquisition. But if we use $1 of federal money, then we got to go to the construction phase with a federal aid and bid it at NDOT, and it becomes, like when we did Veterans Parkway, Ed, you were here. So it becomes a much bigger project. So I think that the approach now is to, let's get that project built all with local money. That can be done. I mean, we've developed a schedule, and, you know, that schedule even allows for a year of utility relocations
Well,
next year.
with that schedule, we have Holman's Lane completed by November of 2017.
2018.
18. And then with, if moving this money to 10th Street, but if we were to go by this schedule with, which is not obligated or obligated yet, that wouldn't even be lit out till 2020, Holman's
Well,
Lane. So we're looking at getting Holman's Lane
not
done
even then.
years before, yeah.
Exactly. We're gaining at least 5 years by just not using, and, you know, we've been very adamant about transferring that grant to another Jeffersonville project and not put it out there for the other communities to, you know, go after it.
So that's going to be my next question. So if we're not going to use that grant, are we going to put another project in? And I know one that's been talked about in the past is Charlestown Pike. Is that something that we looked at doing, or is there another project we're going to put in its place?
Right now, the plan is to put it towards the 10th Street project, the big 10th Street
Yes.
project, not the...
Oh, okay.
The widening on this end.
The goal is not to lose the earmarked money, because these meetings are very competitive. They're within, you know, Jeffersonville, New Albany, Clarksville, Clark County, Floyd County. And I mean, these meetings get really, well, you know, you used 200,000 last year, it's my turn, no, Clarksville said, no, it's my, I mean, it takes a lot of bargaining and negotiations, and then KIPTA's got to put it all on the tip and sell it to the feds. And not until the federal funds are obligated for that fiscal year that they come from Indianapolis do they obligate the money. They're just earmarks. And I've got I don't know if I gave you a copy of the spreadsheet, Lisa, but
Yep, I got it.
there's a 5-year spreadsheet
Got it.
that they're looking at, yeah,
Yep.
at these things. So the object is to, if we can, don't lose the earmarked.
Well, and because Andy wanted me to mention too, he has been in talks with KIPTA on that, using that 800,000 because he said they need it for 10th Street long before this whole airport thing came up too. So he wanted me to make sure I clarified that.
Oh, absolutely. We've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Question, for clarification. I was under the impression, and I think it's the wrong impression, that if we locally paid for the property acquisition and the engineering of Holman's.
You're already paying for the engineering.
Okay, the Holman's, then according to the KIPTA schedule, 2018, I think, is when we could be freed up with some dollars to start the construction. You're saying that is not the
To
case?
start the right-of-way acquisition, not the construction.
Even though it would be done, and there's no right-of-way acquisition left if we're doing it now.
We've got 80 parcels of right-of-way to purchase between now and the end of next year. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. That wouldn't start till July of 2018 if we use that federal money. Even if we're awarded it, first of all.
I got you. So, okay, not that we would do this, but if we got all those parcels acquired and we got all the engineering done this year with local money,
That's what we're looking at.
okay, then the construction could start with with KIPTA in 18? Because I thought I heard you say we're 5 years off or something on that.
We're 5 years off if we want to use a federal participation on this project. What we're looking at doing is transferring the federal participation on another project that's already using federal participation and is on schedule, and getting this project done all with local money.
So basically, involving the federal government adds, it doubles the time of the project.
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, but the earmarking is so far in the future, we can't use that money till that time, and if it is obligated at that time, things can change.
So what was on the KIPTA plan for 2018? That was the property acquisition and the engineering?
It's just our right-of-way.
Oh.
Lisa, do you have it?
Just right away.
Maybe show him.
But if all that was done, you don't just jump to the next step. You wait a year till, or 2 years till the next
If,
step.
yes. If,
And this is all on his website. Remember I told y'all how to go at it?
Right.
I need that.
if we do the right-of-way locally,
Yeah.
and then we put in for a construction grant, there's no money for construction of that project, no federal money. Let me make sure we get that right.
That was my question, I guess,
Yes.
basically.
There's not even money earmarked for construction of that
It
project.
was only right of way.
I mean, KIPTA gets, I think it's $2.4 million of federal funds a year, and then all the communities gotta,
Okay.
I don't know if this is gonna work.
Because Nathan, you remember when we talked to, on the whole 10th Street, why we
I thought I was
held
making a copy.
the mayor to that schedule?
Right.
I talked to everybody that we talked to back then.
Okay, so here's the,
Obligated or
this is the Veterans
Yellow is
Parkway
obligated,
project here. This is Veterans Parkway Phase 2.
which is.
The sheet's too big.
Yep.
And there it describes it, and then when you go to the top, this is gonna be very confusing. There's the money for FY15, which already passed. There's the money for FY16, and all these yellow ones, the money's been all obligated already. None of those are the Veterans Parkway project.
Okay.
But they are the 10th Street project is one of them. Okay, so we move all the way back up here to FY 2018, and there I put the dates, that's my handwriting, and when you come down here, that right there, there's the $800,000 I crossed out.
Yeah. It's earmarked, but
Oh,
it's
he-
not obligated.
Yeah,
Big
there's the
difference.
R, you see that $800,000 in that circle? If you go that way on the spreadsheet, the row is the Veterans Parkway Phase 2 project, which is Holman's Lane. So that R, that's for right-of-way. That's what you can use it for. So
And
I
you're hoping
circled
to
this,
move it
and
to
this is what
construction.
Andy's been working on. We're talking about taking that
Vote
800,000,
next
and
meeting.
moving it up here, which is the 10th Street project, and changing it to construction.
Well, I guess that's my question, is why can't we change that R to a C down there on Holman's? If
We
we're done
can.
by then?
Well, we can, but $800,000 is
Nothing?
10%
Yeah.
or 15% of the amount that we need.
Okay.
You know, I mean, the total project, including the right-of-way acquisition, all the engineering that you've paid for and got to finish paying for, the whole thing is I think it was $8.2 million. I don't have it here. But, you know, that's 10% of the money that you need. And by the time, if we're going to get an 80-20 grant, they say construction's $6 million, so 80% is what, $4.8 million? It ain't going to happen because KIPTA gets $2.4 million a year to distribute between all these communities that are in here. Let's see, what does it say? There, I'm sorry, I got my eyes done.
And then who we've been verifying and talking
Says
to.
New Albany.
So you can
Is that
see-
Larry Cheney, which is the director of KIPTA.
Right, yeah.
So we're getting it
So
straight
you
from
can
them.
see that's the Heavy Haul Road, a project sponsor, NDOT, there you go. Bethany Road, Clark County, Brandline Road's New Albany, Market Street, New Albany.
So what happens if they deny the reallocation? That 800,000 goes somewhere else likely?
It could go back in the pot and everybody would have to,
Fight
that's
already
the
had.
time when we'd have to bring up another project.
Okay.
And there is that risk. And they say it's a low risk, but there is a risk.
Well, his words is it's a reasonable one to expect.
There you go.
Direct from him when we asked about that.
Does that answer your question, I hope?
Yeah, I think so.
And, you know, anybody needs any of this, you know.
Is that what Ron said?
Yeah, see, and
I
that's
mean,
why, that's why.
all this stuff is,
Thank you.
takes
Well,
years to put
can-
together.
I've emailed, maybe you know, maybe there's just a misunderstanding somewhere. Do you know who Glenda Seal is? The
Yes.
Seymour District Communicator?
Yes.
All right, in her email about the Holman's Lane project, and NDOT said, Holman's Lane project in Jeffersonville is scheduled to be let on it starts off with saying the Holman's Lane project in Jeffersonville is scheduled to be let on January 18, 2018. If this project is successfully awarded, We would estimate that construction of the project would begin in early April 2018. I'm sure that's why Nathan...
That's very good, but if
There's
you...
no way.
If, I know Glenda well, she's a very nice person, but I don't know if she looked at this thing. The only money that we got earmarked is right-of-way funds.
Okay, and it does say if the project is awarded successfully, but it almost sounds like it was on a schedule to do that. So
Well,
there's some miscommunication here somewhere.
There is a schedule because not only that, Andy submits since there's earmarked money, Andy's got to submit an updated schedule, and that's what she looked at. We can make that available to you. Andy's got it. So under the federal aid, we had a developed schedule that went all the way. I don't think it was 2018 for construction. I can't answer that. But, I mean, I can just tell you that it ain't going to happen if we use federal funds.
Is there anything else? Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez, do I need to do this in Spanish? I know Ed will understand.
I'll be okay if you do it in Spanish. I don't know about the rest of these. Maybe
Enough.
me.
These people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.